It was actually 2012, Phil, when we launched the Text Classics, and we spent a long time planning what we were going to do. In some ways, the planning was as old as text itself, because we had always brought back old books, and the grandfather of all of the old books that we brought back is what, Contentious 1788, which we did with Tim Flannery way back in the 1990s, and which has since gone on to sell tens of thousands of copies. But there was a bit of a crisis in the book industry in 2011. People were predicting the end of books, the end of bookstores, and so we decided to change the conversation and do something different. And perhaps because we thought our time was limited, we'd better get a hurry on if we were going to launch a program of lost and forgotten books. So we started with the plan to do 30 books, and a number of people suggested an author named Elizabeth Harrower to us. One of them was an editor of text, David Winter, and the other was the wonderful writer, Joan London, who's just won, as Elizabeth did many years ago, the Patrick White Award. And Joan told the story to us, and then in the introduction that she wrote, when we put the Watchtower into the Text Classics of being a student at the University of Western Australia in 1966, there was of course no such thing as Australian literature taught in universities, but she found a novel on the library shelves called The Watchtower, and she read it. And the reading of that novel was inseparable from her commitment to become a writer, so she was absolutely the right person to introduce The Watchtower for us. Well, we thought that we were publishing one book by Elizabeth, and we had a very polite correspondence about that. But then, must have been in late 2011, Penny Houston and I came to Sydney, and Elizabeth caught the bus to the Menzies Hotel, and we had afternoon tea. And I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth in a minute, because all we did was talk, and we talked for hours. And we knew then, and I think Elizabeth knew, that we'd found a new friend. But one of the things that we talked about endlessly were all the books that we'd read and how important reading was for us. And getting to know Elizabeth since then, I've learned that reading for you has always been an absolutely important thing, and something that you've always done from the time you were very small.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how did that all start, Elizabeth?
How did it all start, reading? Well, I was read to before I could read, obviously, by my mother, and obviously read any print that was available from a very early age. And I went on reading until today, more or less. And, you know, I clamoured to hear more reading all the time. And then I tried to read newspapers, books. I just read my whole life. And I realized when I met Michael and Penny that we belonged to the same sort of tribe of people who actually love books. And I knew immediately, you know, they became bosom friends because of their great attachment. I think I said recently to him that that I and a few other friends used to be like evangelists. We would find a book and we would really persecute other people till they appreciated it the way we did. And Michael's exactly like that himself. So I had found a very happy home with text. And what can I say? I think if you're going to have any thought of being a writer, all you must do is read endlessly and read great books forever. And finally, you see what you've produced and you see what a great book looks like, and it gives you something to think about. So that's...
You talked about your mother reading to you. Were there lots of books
yes,
at home, Elizabeth?
She did read to me. I've still got Alice in Wonderland and A.A. Milne, and as I think I might have said on the iPad, I found a little note in pencil: "Dear fairies, please come tonight." not very well written, fairies, F-A-I-R-E-S, please come, but they didn't, or they were hiding, or I was asleep or something. So it's just been a great passion, reading, and it's made great friends for me. It's a huge thing to have in common. So important, you can't overestimate it.
And Elizabeth, you've also talked about how, as a young woman, I think you were 17 when the war ended in
Yes.
Sydney, but that you were a devotee of the Sydney City Library. Is that
I was. It was in the Queen Victoria building, smelled strongly of hops or oats or whatever they made beer out of. And I just read the library to pieces. I was never seen without a large book. And not only fiction and the great novels of the world, but non-fiction and philosophy, psychology, politics, the works. So I think we could say I was a great reader.
And were there particular writers whom you read as, you know, a young woman who were more important than others? I know you read so many, but was it Dickens, or was it Homer, or was there someone in particular who spoke to you?
They all spoke. And I think in the Australian Book Review recently there was this question, have you ever turned against a writer that you once admired very much? Never, never, no. I mean, I knew what I liked, and there they were. I just think we should all feel so grateful that these books exist, and that over the centuries people have given them to us. Can you read this, though? I know that one fairly well, but most of the others, no, unfortunately. I've forgotten it all. There isn't. He zipped up a bag and put it against the wall. There isn't enough time. Mentally, Emily shrugged and raised her eyebrows. He was nice, this man, but what did he mean? Time. That was one thing there was too much of. He was, after all, a bit nuts, like all grown-ups. With cagey, critical eyes, she watched him roll down his sleeves and stack one empty bag inside the other. He noticed her again and said, "Don't wait to ask if you want to take any of those any time." He paused and looked at her for what seemed a long time, in a serious, searching way. Yet as if he knew her, it was a bit confusing and embarrassing, especially in view of what she had just thought about him, and especially when he didn't look exactly happy about it. She wriggled and fiddled with some books, and spotting a dark red box from which the man at that moment lifted a raincoat, said, "Oh, is that a gramophone?" With an effort, he responded to her expression of repressed delight. He said, "Do you know how to work it? Would you like to play something?" I wonder what. She couldn't think. "Yes, but you say." "I don't know." "Are you going to stay here?" Plugging in the machine, he told her where he had come from and what he would be doing in Balaura. Because he was more than tired, he gave a heavy sigh, half groan, half sigh, as he knelt beside the girl on the floor to explain how to use the machine. And Emily, kneeling there, listening to his voice, watching his hand point to a piece of mechanism, turn a knob, suddenly felt at a great distance, was conscious of his unconsciousness of her, of his mechanical concentration on the task he was performing for her, and she felt a wave of compassion for him. She felt a small physical reaction on her spine to the suddenly strange, living humanity of the man beside her. "Yes, yes, I see," she nodded dreamily. "I understand."
Bravo, Elizabeth.